Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn. We are continuing a conversation with Alex Elswick. He is one of the founders of Voices of Hope. It's a new ministry nonprofit organization that is here in Lexington, Kentucky. And the thing I like about the organization, there's places to go for recovery, and those are much needed, but they are not an in-house. They are, after you've been through that, they want to help you stay sober and help you continue to move forward with your life so you can have a peaceful and a productive life and enjoy all the things that God has for us here on this earth. So I want to encourage you to check them out. It's voicesofhopelex.org.
You got it, all one word.
All right. And so yesterday, Alex was just kind of telling us, I mean, he's been through addiction. He's been homeless, living in different cities. And finally, in September 13 of 2013, started a recovery program at the Salvation Army in Dayton, Ohio. And so if you missed that, I want to encourage you. You can catch our podcast anytime at your convenience at our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today. But where we ended things yesterday is you were talking about how some people helped you, and just God extended offers of grace and help. There's always that fine line, Alex, between helping and enabling. And I'm a people pleaser by trade, so this is a struggle for me as somebody that's now been on the other side. I know it's still a daily thing with being sober, but help maybe educate, help coach those people that are listening to us about that fine line between helping and enabling.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's an interesting one for me because I'm a family therapist by trade. That's where I got my master's in family therapy, so got some training in that way, and then through the nonprofit work, and I know that it's a challenge because family members want desperately to help their loved ones get well. Of course they do. They love them. But it's a really difficult question to answer, and I'll do my best. I'll tell you, oftentimes the formula we give people is you want to make it as hard as humanly possible for your loved one to continue to live in addiction and as easy as possible for them to get into recovery. And so sometimes that can be a good guide for making decisions, but it means that different things will be enabling or supporting in different contexts. So, should I give my loved one a ride when they're addicted? Well, if you're concerned that they want a ride because they're going to go buy drugs, it seems pretty apparent that you're enabling. If they want a ride because they want to go put in a job application, that seems like a reasonable step in the direction of supporting someone. And it's a really fine line. It looks different for different families. One of the things I recommend families do as early as possible is get in to see a professional. Get in to see a therapist, and that's both family members and addicted loved ones. And even if your addicted loved one isn't willing to go with you, I still would encourage families to go seek professional help. It's really important to get an outsider's perspective.
And, there's the old saying called tough love, and sometimes saying no is actually part of helping that loved one. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, there's an addiction expert named Catherine Ketchum who just wrote a book. It's pretty interesting. The title escapes me right now, but she talks about how one of the lessons she had to learn. So she's an addiction expert, and her son started using drugs. And so she talks about how she had all this great book knowledge about addiction and didn't serve her real well when she was feeling the emotion of being a parent, right? And she said one of the great lessons she had to learn is that there's a difference between abandonment and letting go. That you can let go of your child, and that doesn't mean you're abandoning them. It may mean that you're protecting yourself, that you're protecting your family, and it may be that you're doing the very best thing for them. Even though it's, I think, pretty counterintuitive especially for moms who have that maternal instinct to protect their cubs, and it's really an emotional nightmare.
And unfortunately, but I think I'm correct in saying this, please correct me if I'm wrong, but by not, enabling, sometimes that's what it takes to help the person that's in addiction come to that point where they're finally like, all right, I'm ready.
That's right. For a lot of people, it is. For a lot of people, I did some research at UK and did some interviews with folks who are in long-term recovery, and the majority of the people I talked to said that it was some sort of a cutoff or an ultimatum that got them into recovery. But what was really interesting in the study that I did is 7 of the 8 people who said that they needed a cutoff to initiate their recovery also said that their family's support was critical to their recovery. So it's a strange balancing act of maybe an ultimatum can help somebody get into recovery, but once people get into recovery, need help, right? Because we're not just trying to stay sober a day at a time. We're trying to rebuild a whole wrecked life. And sometimes it's hard for family members who are so terrified of enabling to see, hey, you can help them with a ride to a job, or you can help, you can still be supportive. You can still contribute to their recovery. It's just finding ways to do that.
Okay, I get that. And I would say one of the things, and I know this sounds so simple, but I think just because I've, tried to help some people with getting sober and being in recovery, probably wise thing is not to give cash.
Yeah, seems like an easy one. Yeah, and, enabling looks different for so many different families. I hear a lot of parents who say, well, I don't give my son who's addicted cash. I'll just fill up his gas tank. And depending on the context, it may be that what that's doing is freeing up money that then they can use to go, buy drugs. So I think enabling can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different folks. But what's most important really is that you're evaluating, is this contributing to their addiction or is this contributing to their recovery?
Okay, great question. If you've just tuned in, we're talking with Alex Elswick. He's with Voices of Hope Lex.org. That's Voices of Hope Lex.org, and they are based here in Lexington, Kentucky. Where are you guys located, Alex?
So we're at 450 Old Vine Street, just real close to downtown Lexington, Suite 101.
All right. And one of the things I love that you guys offer as part of your services to help people with recovery, you have something called telephone recovery support. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so I went up with Amanda Fallon Bennett, who's one of our co-founders, and my mom, who's our president, another co-founder, up to some organizations in the Northeast in Rhode Island and Connecticut to see how they were doing a similar kind of model, recovery center model. And we saw this telephone recovery support program. And it's really cool because in a traditional 12-step program, people typically have to reach out to their sponsor. And a lot of people use the phrase 1,000-pound phone, and it's really hard to pick up that phone in a moment of need. And so this kind of flips that on its head. And instead of waiting for people to call, we call them. So people who enroll in the program, we call on a weekly basis and really just check in and say, how's your recovery going today? And we'll connect people with resources wherever we can. But more than anything, it's about making a connection and showing people that they're supported and they're loved.
All right. And the people you talked about, that people are in your program, how do people become a part of the program at Voices of Hope?
Sure. So anybody can enroll in the telephone recovery support program. There's a link to do that on voicesofhopelex.org. And then we do a great deal of recruiting at treatment centers and sober living homes and in the jail, at the detention center, and any place where someone's going to have to transition when they get out and they're going to face challenges. And we just want to keep them engaged in their recovery, even if that's in these kind of small but meaningful ways.
Absolutely. Well, I love the telephone recovery thing. You guys call them instead of, like you said, dealing with 1,000-pound phone where you're hesitant to call. Another thing that you guys offer is recovery coaching. Talk to us about that.
Sure. So some people will recognize it kind of like sponsorship in a 12-step program, but it's not 12-step affiliated. And really a recovery coach is a person who is in recovery themselves, so they've walked the path, and they're going to help you overcome barriers to your recovery. And it's totally person-centered, and what I mean by that is you get to decide what you want to work on. So if you come in and you say, my focus really is getting a job, and maybe your housing situation isn't real stable, and maybe someone else might think you should work on that first. That's not our business. Our business is helping you get what you want. So if what you want is a job, then we set about helping you do that. We help people get their record expunged, help people improve relationships, help people budget, anything you can think of that would help them improve their health and well-being. We're down for it.
Well, I love that because you mentioned the employment part of it because, as you said, I mean, the good news is you may have got sober, but man, so many times, unfortunately, you've made a lot of unwise decisions, and it's hard to find employers who are giving you opportunities. Is that true?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of us will have a criminal record when we come out of addiction and into recovery, and that's just a reality of addiction, and it's a heck of a barrier to overcome.
But you guys offer that help, though, to try to help people and have established relationships with people that are willing to help people like that?
Yeah, so speaking of that, we have an employment program, and so what we do is we have somebody work with us part-time, 10 hours a week, so they're paid for 10 hours. During the time that they're working with us, we require them to go to learn how to build a resume, learn how to conduct interviews, kind of dress for success, that kind of idea, really improve their marketability. and we have 100% success rate so far. I think we're 3 for 3. It's a relatively new program, but 3 for 3 on getting people jobs. And one of the things that I think is cool about it is we're not just interested in, let's go put it in an application at this fast food restaurant, get you a job, check the box. It's like, what's meaningful employment look like for you? What's your goal? How can we really get you moving towards rebuilding a new life? And so most recently, we got a girl a job working at a treatment center, and she really gives her an opportunity to give back in a way that's meaningful for her.
That's awesome. Some other things that you guys offer as resources I really like. You offer everything from yoga classes to things, support groups for friends and family.
Yeah, we run what are called SMART friends and family groups, and it's a big one because there's a lot of stigma surrounding addiction, a lot of stigma for people who are addicted. But what we talk about even less is the stigma surrounding families. And so, if God forbid your son or daughter had cancer or leukemia or something, you could talk about that openly in public, and people would come to your aid, and you'd get Hallmark cards, and you'd get flowers, and people would sympathize. That's not always the experience that families have when they say, my child's addicted. My child doesn't have the disease of leukemia. My child has the disease of addiction. There are no Hallmark cards and there are no flowers, right? And that's unfortunate. And so the Friends and Family Group is first and foremost about providing a space for people to share and be supported. But it's also a place to share ideas and for people to learn from each other's experiences. Kind of as we talked at the beginning of the segment about finding that line between enabling and supporting and working out a lot of those issues.
I love that. I think that's great. And just tuned in, we're talking with Alex Elswick. He is with voicesofhopelex.org. You can hear all the great things they're doing. Maybe you want to become a financial partner. They accept donations. They are a nonprofit. So go to voicesofhopelex.org and make a donation. Alex, we got a couple minutes left. What would you say to, that person that's either struggling with addiction or that family member that's listening that, just is kind of at their wits' end?
Yeah. I know how horribly cliche this is, and if someone had said this to me when I was in the depths, I might have rolled my eyes, but it really is darkest before the dawn. Because the day before I got sober, on September 12th, 2013, I was shooting heroin under a bridge. It couldn't get much worse than that, right? And I think that's the nature of addiction, that a lot of times it has to be at its very worst right before it starts to get better. And so if you've been to treatment 2, 3, 5 times, maybe it's the 6th time. I know for a lot of people who struggle with opioid addiction, the statistical average is 7 treatments. It's just what it takes. It takes what it takes. And so I tell people, just don't give up. And for family members, I'd essentially have the same message. Don't give up on your loved ones, because this may be the time. And if it isn't this time, it may be the next time,
Final thing, if you could you just pray for us, man, for those
Absolutely.
people out there, please?
Say, God, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to meet with Greg and to spread the message. And I'm so grateful for what you've done with Voices of Hope and the opportunities you've given us to breathe life into other people. Because I know that I'm not in recovery because of me or because of my power. I know it's because you put people in my life to show up for me. And I just ask that you do the same for everyone else. And it's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
All right. Well, that's Alex Elswick. I want to encourage you to check out their website, voicesofhopelex.org, voices with an S of hopelex.org. I'm Greg Horn, and this is Hope is Here.
The signs of an aging parent can be overwhelming, but at Home Instead Senior Care, we understand the struggle of caring for an aging loved one. What was once simple, like making a cup of hot tea or getting the mail, isn't so simple for them anymore. It's why we offer everything from individualized help around the house to advanced Alzheimer's care to keep them safe and sound at home instead of anywhere else. Take the first step and call us anytime at 859-273-0085 or visit us at homeinstead.com/312. Home Instead Senior Care. To us, it's personal.